is ignorance potentially somehow beneficial to people? So we normally would think that knowing how stuff works and knowing as much as we can about the world would be the preferred option. But maybe there are situations in which not knowing is actually better, allows you to have more happiness, less worry, less stress, and just like more trust in the world that, you know, everything will be okay. Um, there are different examples of that, but even something like enjoying food, if you know a lot about nutrition and how the food is made and how it can impact your body and so on, and you know all the details, then out of the sudden, when you're eating that food, you are aware of way too many things and negative things as well to fully enjoy. So when we were children, we didn't have much knowledge about the world. So we just, let's say, saw ice cream and we ate it and we enjoyed it fully. And now we see the ice cream and we're like, that's overpriced. And besides, it contains sugar and hydrogenated vegetable oil, and this is super pro-inflammatory, and it's making people fat and sick. And you know, you have the ice cream and you have all of these other things, whereas probably nothing would happen to you if you just once ate one ice cream, right?
Mm-hmm.
About it?
All right. So I think we could phrase the question on what is better, the red pill or the blue pill? In a sense, this is a famous question from this film called The Matrix. And in that film, the main actors ask, what do you want? Do you want to know reality, which is terrible? Or do you want to live on happily, even though you know you're living a lie? Now, that's an extreme example, but I think that's kind of what it boils down to. Is it better to know? Is it better not to know? And as you said, I also agree that most people would generally say, yeah, of course I want to know. But as you said, I think there are some cases when it's better not to know for different reasons. I think you gave a good example. I think the example of nutrition is quite good, because I do think that a lot of people worry about nutrition, and this worry, one, might lead for them to enjoy themselves less, meaning less happiness, which generally is a goal for most people. And second, it might actually be counterproductive, because maybe they think that they will get some negative effect, when in reality they wouldn't get that much, but them thinking that they would get the negative effect would actually lead them to worse health. So I agree with your point that sometimes it's better not to know.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we're talking not only about the effect of nutrition on like biochemical level, but effect of belief that what you ate is actually going to harm you, and your body can manifest that. There are a lot of studies. For example, one of them, people were given like fake chemotherapy, and they thought that it was real, and they developed all the symptoms of like real one. So
Interesting.
whatever we expect with certainty, it might manifest in our lives. And that's why it's really scary, right? And as we were saying, that it spoils certain experiences. Like for example, someone might learn about the germs, and then they might be like obsessively washing their hands and thinking that they're going to get some diseases from like germs, or some people learn about STDs and that like freaked out to have sex or whatever. So many times knowing too much about something that's very low risk, but like if you spend 90% of your time, following fun pages on Facebook that talk about just this one danger, it's like all in your head. So it spreads from this little thing that is in reality to like 90% of your awareness. That's how people can develop phobias and all kinds of strange things, right?
Yeah, I think you gave some examples that are good. And I have some examples I just thought about from my own life, where also there was a certain behavior that I had before knowing, and then I had a certain knowledge, and then I stopped doing that behavior. So one of those examples would be drinking from a fountain or from these plastic water dispensers. So I read about how many of these are infected with malign bacteria. So I decided I'm not going to drink anymore. Now, sometimes I would be thirsty. I would pass by such a fountain or drinking water dispenser, and I would not drink anything. So you could say, well, this is making me less happy, and maybe I'm getting dehydrated because of that change in behavior. On the other hand, maybe I have avoided diseases because I did not drink that water from the water dispenser. So,
Exactly.
it kind of depends on, um, is that knowledge? So generally, so we're talking about knowledge, which would generally be negative knowledge, right? So we're not talking about you find out that you are extremely intelligent. You find out that you have the genetic predisposition to be an extremely good athlete. I mean, that's good. That's just good because it's good. It tells you what you can do with your life, what capabilities you have, and second, it also it makes you happy. But there are other situations where it makes you unhappy. Information can make you unhappy. And then the question is, do I want to know it because it's making me unhappy? Or do I want to know it because I'm able to change something about it? And this change that I'm making could actually be have a real impact, a positive impact. So if it's something where it's a change where I'm actually changing in a way because of that knowledge, which really improves my life, then I think it's positive.
Yeah, and you just mentioned something like basically when you listen to the news, it's usually stuff that you have no control over, but it will make you feel fear and maybe hate or whatever it makes you feel, right? Like it makes you feel bad, but there's nothing you can do about it. So this is another good example of like being well informed, but it's just making you feel bad and scared. Whereas maybe in the same time, you could read a biography of someone who did something inspiring in the world, and you would be
Hmm.
empowered and full of courage because it's like, oh, if this guy tried 20 times and then he became like super successful, then maybe I should try again or something like that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So maybe we can find some more examples of cases where we get knowledge of something that is making us feel bad, but that can lead us to maybe do some changes and therefore is positive. So, or on the other hand, maybe we don't want to know. So, I think it would be helpful if we go over several examples. So, one of the examples that I would come up with is going to a fortune teller and having the fortune teller tell us that we're gonna die within the next 3 years in a car accident. So, is that something you want to know, or is it something you don't want to know?
Yeah, I probably don't want to know, right? Because you are just living like, da-da-da, and otherwise you will be worrying about it all the time, trying to avoid it or something. I don't know. Even if that was true, because like she's obviously like not, she doesn't know it either. So I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, so I mean, one thing isn't, is it true or is it not true? Let's say it is true, because we're
Mm,
talking about you want to have knowledge. So this, like we're saying, this knowledge is like it's true knowledge. Let's say it is true. Let's say you know it's true. Uh, I don't know, because you could say, well, there's nothing I can do about it because I'm gonna die in a car accident anyway in 3 years from now. On the other hand, you could say, well, I can change my life in the sense that I'm enjoying those 3 years a lot, and I'm not just working my ass off in order to make a lot of money within 3 years, because I know I only have 3 years to live. So I'm rather enjoy my life, experience a lot of things, get close to the relationships I have. So
mhm.
I am able to make a modification, even though I cannot change the fact that I'm going to die in 3 years. I can change my life to live it to the fullest. So
Mm,
maybe I do want to know.
that's a great point. And also it happens for cancer patients, for example, that not the fortune teller, but the doctor might tell them that they have some like late stage or whatever cancer. So it's
That's
a
exactly
real deal.
that's the exact example that was the fortune teller. Exactly. So while the fortune teller example is a bit abstract and maybe it doesn't really happen, I think it's a great example with the doctor. So as a doctor, should you tell the patient he's going to die? Well, I guess you have a legal obligation to do so, but does it make the patient feel bad that he's going to die within the next 2 years?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, because yes, he's going to worry, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Mhm.
But he can do something about living the life to the fullest in the next whatever time he has left.
That's very good. And also some people wake up and start living for real only after they face death in some sense.
Exactly true.
So that's true. And there's this general quote that it's better sometimes not to know how the sausage gets made, right? So some level of ignorance might be good. Or, for example, people who don't speak English, they hear a song on the radio and they're like, "Oh, this is an amazing song!" Like whatever, they love it. But then if they do learn English and they understand the lyrics, they're like, "Oh, okay, this is bad vibes. Like it's about divorce or like some strange stuff, right?"
I don't know that many
This
songs
makes
about
sense.
divorce. I haven't heard any song about divorce, but
Well,
okay.
Abba, very
Oh, okay.
famous thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's called "The Winner Takes It All."
Oh,
Um,
true. Yeah. The winner takes it all. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
they have a lot of messed up songs, and the generation of my parents love them, and they don't understand like what the songs are about.
Yeah, because it's a very joyful music.
Yeah, right, isn't that right? So
Hmm.
it's very interesting. Like sometimes you like something and then you understand it's like, oh, another thing is about institutions. So let's say as children, we think like, okay, so the companies are doing everything in their power to like give us the great products, and then the government will take care of us, and the church will take care of us, and like we're well protected. Everything is amazing. We believe everything at face value. And then when you look at what those institutions are actually doing and why and how corrupt all of them are, including, scientists being paid by the industry, all of that, and then you're like, oh, wow, you can't trust anyone. And everyone has an agenda and you might be very distrustful in general, right?
All right. So in those examples, for example, the song, would you say it's good or bad that your parents don't understand the lyrics and therefore enjoy the song, which they might not enjoy if they understood the lyrics? And the case of the knowledge of the corruption of institutions, do you think it's good that you're innocent and you believe that everybody wants your best, or do you think that the knowledge of corruption and that not everybody wants your best is actually good?
Well, it depends on like what you want to optimize, because I think there is one difference here between like happiness versus success and effectiveness and this kind of things. So if you want to optimize for happiness, yeah, don't know what the song actually says, and that's an easy one. And then if you want to optimize, let's say for success, you might want to know that the institutions are corrupted, for example, right?
Yes, I agree. So I guess most people have the goal of happiness in their life, but most people also have the goal of achieving something. And so the achievement, generally could say the amount of achievement is productivity. And so if you can change your action for the better, be it you're more effective in dealing with people, be it that you are more aware of how to behave so you're healthier, those are things which could be called productivity, which of course could also lead to more happiness. Because if you're healthier, then you supposedly would be happier. So I guess you're right. It always depends on the two. I would caution with one thing though. I ask a lot of people the question, what is their goal in their life? And a lot of people would tell me their goal in their life is happiness. But then I give them an example to see if their goal really is happiness. I ask them, if you live a life of complete happiness, where you have a great company, a great marriage, happy children, and a complete life. And then at the end, when you die, you find out that everything was based on a lie. That the company that you thought you built actually doesn't exist anymore, has gone bankrupt. That the children, that your marriage was a scam, and your wife actually had the relationship with another guy all the time, and your children actually not your children, and everybody hates you. Would but you thought, you didn't know that, so you were happy all your life. Would that be a fulfilling life? And almost everybody says no, no, that's a life based on lies. That would not be fulfilling. I don't want that. But then I'm saying, well, then you don't want happiness, because happiness means that you just feel happy over your life. and the last second or the last minute of unhappiness cannot compensate for the whole life of happiness. So in terms of happiness, that's a perfect life. In terms of, but most people just don't want that. So I don't believe that people really want happiness. They do want happiness, but additionally they want this happiness that's based on reality, that's based on the truth. Uh, right.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, it's also that people who are, let's say, more ignorant have more luck or bad luck in their lives, whereas people who know stuff, how it works, can control reality to, let's say, a greater degree. So I think it's not a question of luck whether you will be obese and have diabetes or not. Like for you, it's obvious choice. Like you know how to control that outcome, right? But for a lot of people, it will be just like, oh, it happened because they didn't know like what's causing what and so on. So I think
Mm,
you move from that randomness of luck or versus bad luck to controlling things, but you pay the price of worrying more, of not enjoying so much, not so wholeheartedly, because you always see that it's not black or white, it's like shades of gray everywhere. So yeah, maybe
mm,
maybe sometimes it's even like good to switch off the analysis, the thinking, and just allow yourself to enjoy fully something in small dose that won't kill you, but
mm-hmm.
basically so that you don't have to constantly analyze and know everything that has to do with this one thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, let's go over some more examples and see how you would feel about them. The example of the Matrix. Have you watched the film The Matrix?
I think so, but a
Yeah.
long time ago.
So there is this question: do you want the do you want the blue pill or you want the red pill? Do you want to know that the whole world is being controlled by machines and that all humanity is actually unconscious and just being controlled by machines, or do you want to live on as in your unconscious conscious state of mind and in a state of bliss? What would you choose? Would you choose you want to know reality, or would you choose just continuing your life in a state of unconsciousness, basically in a dream, in a computer
Okay.
reality?
I think actually the answer would come from your personality. And if you are an INTP, like your life's goal is to know and to understand and to basically understand systems and complexity. So I think we are drawn to that. Like a lot of people who are,
So,
let's
so
say,
you would say yes, you want to know.
yeah, but like sensing judges, for example, that want like simple rules, they don't want to like think too much, whatever, they would probably be completely fine with, you know,
Okay, I would want to know as well.
yeah.
Okay, what about your partner has an affair? So let's say I know you don't want to get married. Let's say you are married, and let's say your partner has an affair, cheating on you. Do you want to know or you don't want to know?
So I think the general advice from psychologists is that people should not like bring that up, even if they want to. Because some people are having an affair and they want to come out to their partner. They're like, no, don't do that to them, right? Because they don't deserve to like be hurt like that way. Because like ignorance is better for the person than not. But I would not. I would not enter the kind of agreement that expects monogamy. So like, yeah.
I understood. But I mean, again, those researchers, they're basing their answer on happiness. On what? So, are you
Yeah.
going to be happy if you don't know? Yes, you're going to be happy if you don't know. But maybe you don't just care about happiness. Maybe you also care about reality. Maybe you don't want happiness that's based on a lie. So, I would want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, okay. Uh, what about some genetic condition that is potentially affecting you? You doing a genetic test and you can find out about that condition, but it's unchangeable. You can't change that condition. Do you want to know about that condition or you don't want to know about that condition?
I think I do want to know, and I think if it's significantly impacting my life, I probably already know in some way, right? Um, yeah, and then
Okay.
usually
I
you
have a
can
friend
do
of
something
mine
about it.
who is an Alzheimer paint. Oh, no, who is has two sets of genes, of variants of a gene, that both predispose her to Alzheimer's disease,
Uh-huh.
which means she has a 15-fold more likelihood of
Oh,
getting Alzheimer's. So I don't know if I would want to know. I guess yes, because in this case, there is something you can do about it. Because she, of course, pays a huge amount of attention to her nutrition, trying to get nutrition that would prevent Alzheimer's.
yeah,
And it's
that's
shown
true.
that if you pay attention to your nutrition, you are able to prevent Alzheimer's, or not prevent it, but to reduce the likelihood quite a lot.
Yeah, there are things you can do, probably also like using your brain a lot and learning new languages and this and that. I think they're correlated with slowing down this kind of diseases as well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And even
So
if there was nothing you can do, you could at least use the years that you have right now before you have the disease to the fullest, like we talked about,
exactly.
scenario.
Now, what about terminal cancer? Cancer which is not curable, at least by medicine, and you're gonna die within the next 5 years. Do you want to know or not?
Well, the question is like, when do you want to know? Because you will know at some point because you will have some problems, right? Feeling some problems, and then you will know.
Sure.
But
Do
do
you
you
want?
want to know
Yeah,
much
yeah.
more in advance,
But do you
right?
want to? Do you want to know right now?
I think I do want to know right now, and it's also because of the fact that if you know that you only have, I know, 3 more years, then you will maybe use today differently than you would otherwise, right?
Hmm.
Depending on like what time frame you assume for your life. Like right now, maybe we're assuming that we'll live to 90 or something or 100, right?
Hmm.
So we're planning for that, or maybe
Hmm.
procrastinating on some stuff or whatever. But maybe that would
True.
shift far ahead.
True. So basically, if you can change something about like in your nutrition, you can prevent a certain disease, or you can, let's say, cure the cancer. I would say definitely I do want to know. If you are not able to change something about the disease, but you can also change something about the life you're living, then you might also want to know it because maybe you want to live life to the fullest in those few years that are left. So, and generally, I'd want to know. Now, let's talk about there is an interesting case of a patient that had unsuccessful marriages. She wanted to get children. She didn't get children, and then at some point she became psychotic. Her reality was different. Her reality was that she was a prince, that she was a queen in Scotland, and that she had several princes around her that all treated her like, uh, their biggest love and like a queen. And so she totally did not see what reality was, but she was very happy in that circumstance. So she came to a psychologist or to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist's role was to get her to see reality. But then the psychiatrist was faced with the decision: should I give her back reality, because the reality that she has created for herself is exactly what she wants, and she is happy in this reality. So isn't that an amazing capacity of the brain to create a reality which makes us happy, even though it has nothing to do with reality? So the question is, should you try to get the patient to see reality, which would make her extremely disappointed, or should you basically be happy for the patient and say, well, go on, thinking that this dream you're living is true?
Well, it depends on also how the life of this patient looks like right now. Because if it's making her completely like unable to function in society,
Now she was
uh,
functioning well, so she was functioning well and she was happy.
and then she should be left alone, I think. Why would anyone intervene if there's no problem? Whatever she believes in
Hmm.
her is like her thing, right? Like, people believe in all kinds of crazy stuff in religions or whatever. So like,
Mm.
why would anyone care?
Hmm. Which brings me to an interesting point, which is that my happiness has been to some extent reduced by knowledge of how the brain generates happiness. Because the brain generates happiness synthetically. So there's something called synthetic happiness. It is when, for example, you are imprisoned because before for a crime that you did not commit, and you spend 40 years in prison, and you come out and you make a statement saying, this has been the best experience in my life that I could have ever had. I'm so glad I was in prison. And everybody else is saying, that doesn't make any sense. You spent 40 years in prison for a crime you didn't commit. But the brain always tries to make us happy. And so it tries to make the situation we are in seem like the best situation possible. Another example, take Hillary Clinton. After she lost the election, she probably felt terrible for quite some time because she spent so much effort, and so many people spent so much effort, and she was sure she was going to win, and she didn't. And now she's not president. But her brain very certainly did the following. It made her appreciate the things that she has right now more. So she's spending time with her grandchildren, with her family. She sees how much stress Trump has, and she's saying to herself, oh, wow, I'm so happy I did not become president. That's what the brain does to us. It's always trying to make us happy, and it's always telling us, well, actually, the way it worked out is just fine. It's great that it happened the way it did.
Yeah.
And that is something that actually we are kind of distorting the reality. Subjectively, we'll always see it more positively than we actually should, realistically. And people that are depressed are many times the people that are seeing the things realistically, and people that are happy are many times the people that are seeing things more positively, because the brain has a manufactured happiness. So knowing that the happiness is in fact a manufactured happiness, I kind of observe myself sometimes, I'm probably manufacturing happiness here. I'm feeling that the reason that once a company I founded was not successful, and then I went through this hardship, that was a good thing, because then I was able to experience hardship. So I'm happy about that. But then I'm thinking, that looks like manufactured happiness. So I shouldn't be happy about this. This is just a manufactured happiness. My brain is trying to produce happiness, but really the situation is not good. So that is something that has made me less happy, because I know to differentiate between real happiness and between manufactured happiness.
Yep, because our brain is trying to make us, happy, as you said, and also keep us at certain level that is like our comfort zone. So, for example, poor people and middle class people look at the rich and are like, these rich people now, like I wouldn't want that much stress, and like when they get popular, they can't even walk outside because people are trying to take selfies with them. I wouldn't want such a life, right?
Exactly.
And maybe they really wouldn't, but maybe they just basically explain it to themselves in a way that. Then in religions, you also have something like, rich people won't go to heaven because it's really hard for a rich person
of course.
to go to heaven. So it's really good we're not rich, so we can go to heaven.
Exactly.
So there's always like certain level of excuse for why you're not who you could be, but you're not.
Exactly. And you always say, and even though a lot of people think that actually we our brain is seeing things from a negative point of view, no, the opposite is true. We are always trying to get excuses why, in fact, our situation is so much preferable to other situations, and why, in fact, what has happened to us, even though the shit that has happened to us actually turned out quite all right.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look at your experience and you're like, I wouldn't change anything, because all the things that happened to me led me to become who I now am, and I'm satisfied with that.
Exactly.
And I survived.
Exactly. So another example is this is from the book The Influence. There was this lady that had a perfect boyfriend. Then this boyfriend began drinking. And she said, no, okay, I can't be with you anymore. It was a horrible experience. Then she had another boyfriend that was also a great boyfriend. She was going to marry this guy. Then the other guy came back to her and said, please come back. And then she made this tough decision. She went back to the old guy. Now, maybe 1 month later, the guy started drinking again. It was again a horrible experience, objectively. But subjectively, it was no longer a horrible experience for her, even though the guy was drinking or treating her badly. Why? Because at this point, she had already left this other wonderful relationship. So having left this other wonderful relationship, her brain now says, wow, this is such a terrible decision that I took in the past. Now I have to make the experience so much better. Otherwise, she's going to become depressed. So our brain is trying to prevent a depression by somehow making us get preferences for what we have, even though we took the wrong decision.
That's very true. That's how we adapt to things, and we get used to things. And also, it's very interesting because, for example, if you have a marriage, then let's say 20 years later, you're like, why am I with this person? Oh, because 20 years ago I signed some papers and all of that, so now I have to be okay. So that's the reason why I'm with this person. But let's say you're not married and you're 20 years together, and it's like, why am I with this person? Well, I could walk away at any time, but I must really love this person since I'm still here, right? Because there's nothing forcing me to do that. So maybe you are explaining it to yourself differently on this basis, that since you're still here, you must be happy. There must be something in it.
Very, very good point. Very, very good point. And that's actually that. Even though it seems like that can't be true, there is a very interesting experiment which comes to a similar conclusion. There was an experiment. 2 groups participated. Both were told you're going to get payment. Then, after the experiment, one group was told, sorry guys, thank you for participating, but actually we don't have money to pay you. And the other group got the payment. So now you would expect, when asked about how much they enjoyed the work, that the group that got paid would say, well, they enjoyed it more. But the opposite was true. Because the group that did not get paid enjoyed the work much more. They evaluated it much higher. Why? Because when they did not get paid, they had this regret setting in. Oh my God, I did this work and I didn't get paid. Regret. The brain jumps in and says, okay, now I need to make you a memory of how the experience was much better. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed you took that decision. So the memory of the experience becomes much better. And then they are actually happy that they participated because they said, well, I didn't get paid, but actually it was a lot of fun to participate. So this is manufactured happiness. And unfortunately for me, have read a lot about manufactured happiness, which is when it's happening to me. And I can see a lot of the times it's happening to me. I'm aware of it and I'm saying, this is manufactured happiness. This is not real happiness. So that should not count. And I'm making myself actually less happy than I could be.
Yeah, and talking about those compensation mechanisms, I think Benjamin Franklin was saying that the best way to make someone like you is to allow them to do a favor for you.
Exactly.
Then they will have to explain it to themselves. Why did they do a favor to say, oh, because I like this person. So fascinating, counterintuitive mechanisms.
Yeah, exactly. You're totally right. Yes.
And then the very intuitive thing would be to do something for that person, so something nice. But nice guys finish last and so on. And it's just like a lot of counterintuitive mechanisms.
Exactly. Yes. So coming back. So coming back to when is it good to know? When is it good not to know? So there's some information that is negative, that would generally make us feel worried or unhappy. Do we want to know this information or not? So we came to the conclusion that sometimes yes, sometimes no. If it's information where we can do nothing about, let's say it's information about general negative news, the conclusion would be for us, generally we don't want to know. If, however, there is something we can do about, let's say, for example, nutrition, negative nutrition, then we do want to know so that we can actually change our behavior to avoid that negative nutrition. However, we also said that sometimes that might not be true, because knowing that this is a certain thing is negative can make us worry about it. And this worry can cause a nocebo effect, meaning a negative placebo effect, which is actually bad for our health, as well as it's making us unhappy. So we have to balance the change in our behavior, which could be positive, versus the worry, which could by itself be negative, and then of course also the unhappiness being caused.
And
And then
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The problem with nutrition is that we don't know exactly, like, let's say sugar is bad for your teeth, but how much sugar exactly for your particular teeth, that everyone is different genetically, and then how long would this sugar have to be on your teeth? Because it really makes a difference whether you eat something and then you brush your teeth versus you eat something and you sip a soft drink all day long, for example, right? Like the exposure to the bacteria is different. So it's such like uncountable thing. Like my father was always telling me like, oh, don't eat sweets because you will have problems with your teeth. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't know how many sweets would lead to what outcomes.
Mm,
I think science is very unclear, and then it's very individualistic, and it depends on like whether you leave this sugar on or off or whatever.
mm,
So it's just like we have signals that, oh, this might be bad for you, but we have no idea whether, let's say, what you ate today matters or not. Is it below the threshold, you're safe, or maybe it's above the threshold, you're not safe.
mm,
So you have to navigate the landscape like this. And it's like this with every single little thing with nutrition. Like, let's say you drink water out of a plastic bottle, but will it
mm,
actually shorten your life, or will it just lower your testosterone, or like to what degree and how much would you have to? And we don't know any of the
mm.
answers to those questions. So it's really hard.
That's true. Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm paying a lot of attention to not getting those xenoestrogens from plastic bottles, from can lining, from plastic containers, from my shampoo and shower gel. So, but of course, I'm worried about it. And of course, sometimes I might not, sometimes I'm worried about maybe this worry is maybe it's making me unhappy. So we always need to balance, on the one hand, the effect it has on our state of mind, on our happiness. On the other hand, the effect it has on our behavior, because maybe we can behave in a way that is more conscious of the dangers, and thereby avoid these dangers. Of course, it's a problem that we don't know what exactly those dangers mean.
Yeah, and there are smokers, for example, who say, well, everyone has to die for some reason, so I will just die because of smoking, right? Or something like that. So they rationalize it. But then there are people who live over 100 and they smoke all their lives. Like one of these
Mm.
ladies that was the longest, living longest in the world, was quit smoking actually at 100 or something like that. So
Mm.
then,
Well.
like, you know, and if we had a way to measure, if we had an app that tells you exactly, okay, this meal has that negative effect for you, particularly because of your genetics and because of this. And if you continue doing that every day, you will end up, I don't know, living 15 years less or whatever. But it's so like, it's just like clouds of confusion. We don't know to what degree stuff affects us. And maybe let's say you have a bad diet, but what if then for 3 months you have a perfect diet? How much of
Mm.
that could be reversed, right? Or like
Exactly.
people,
Yeah. There's a lot of things we don't know.
you know,
That's true. Yeah.
people quit smoking, and let's say in
Mm.
15 years, their risks are exactly the same like before they started.
Mm.
So it's just like super confusing, all of it.
Right. Okay. Yes, I agree. So uh, then we had one more example, which was a negative health condition, which is cannot cannot be changed. So there's nothing I can do about it. So we would say, well, if it's nothing I can do about it, it's making me unhappy. But we said that maybe, even though I cannot do anything about the health condition, I might still want to know, because even though it's making me worried, it's making me maybe unhappy, I am able to change to live my life in a different way. I'm able to live my life more fully. So I actually would want to know, because then I would change the way I live.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we also said that for an affair, if there is our partner has been cheating on us, do we want to know? Do we not want to know? And we would say, or psychologists would say, well, for the happiness of the person, just don't tell your partner. On the other hand, I would say I would want to know, even though I know it's making me less happy. because I do want to take decisions based on that. And even if I wouldn't want to change my decision based on that, I would still want to know. And the same thing with a happy life based on lies. The example I gave earlier, where I'm living a life that's totally based on lies. I'm living. My marriage is a lie. My children are not my children. My business is not my business, and actually, it's broke. Even though I thought it was successful, so everything is a lie. But I don't know about that because everyone's lying to me, and I think that I have a very happy life. So I am happy. In fact, I am happy. But it's all based on lies. Is that good or not? I would say I don't want that. But if people say they care about happiness, then this is producing happiness. So they should want that. So maybe it's not all about happiness. Maybe we want to have happiness based on reality. So some people, like maybe me, in most cases, I would always want to know, even though it's making me unhappy, and even though there's nothing I can change about it. I would want to know. I would want to know more of the reality, even though this is making me worry and making me unhappy, and I'm not able to change it. I would still want to know.
Yeah, and might be connected with your personality type, because there is the personality type that wants to understand the world and learn as much as possible and control as much as possible. But there are some personality types that are just more like oblivious to reality. They just want to like follow some rules and be happy in the moment and not overthink anything actually. And they will trust the tradition and religion and institutions and uh, not not try to like challenge different things. Or if they hear an idea that is not in alignment with what they already know, they will just reject it without analyzing, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also, I think, one of the mechanisms that people use to protect themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are bringing them the truth, like, I don't know, there is no God, and they don't want to hear it, then they would just not hear it.
Okay.
They would just label you as like, oh, you are the bad person, and they would go
Mm-hmm.
back to believing what they want to believe, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, Sebastian, how would you summarize our discussion?
So yeah, uh, I think sometimes ignorance can be okay. We shouldn't be completely like rejecting it because it sometimes has some potential pluses. Like even when I was a child in the early 90s in Poland, inflation was 600%. I didn't know about it at all, and it didn't affect me badly because of that. Like just
Mm-hmm.
like blissful unawareness of certain things. And there are many, many things we will be not aware of. And it doesn't mean necessarily we live in a lie, but let's like, first of all, not everything can be known. Like we have limited focus and capacity and so on. And then it's better to focus on the good things rather than the bad things. But if we want to be very successful and maybe avoid like health problems and maybe other problems and have maybe less randomness in our lives but more control, then we would need to learn stuff, but we will pay the price for that by maybe enjoying less and yeah, maybe being more cynical in general. That like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree that there is some trade-off between happiness and productivity. Productivity meaning achieving your goals, be it longevity, be it financial success, whatever. And that generally you always want to know positive knowledge. So if there's something positive news, you always want to know about that. But if there's negative news, it depends on, does it affect the way you would behave? If it does, you probably do want to know. If it does not, so it's negative news that would just make you sad or worry, but it wouldn't change the way you behave because there's nothing you can do to change it, then I would say generally you don't want to know. I guess some people, however, like myself, in many cases would still want to know
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise I would be feeling I'm living, I'm happy, but it's a happiness based on a lie, on some misinformation.
Yeah, I'm just reminded of this. For example, in a small village in Poland, life was pretty much the same before World War II, during World War II, and after World War II. And it's just like, you had the same house and there was sun on the sky and there was the same forest and you had your sheep and goats or whatever you had, and you had to like work with them. and you had local traditions and everything. And despite of like all the craziness that was going on around you and in the world, in the cities mostly, if you didn't read the news or whatever, like you saw pretty much no change. Very little change, like maybe taxes were higher, maybe you saw some like people or whatever, but like normally life of people who weren't deeply involved in like analyzing what's going on in the world were unaffected even by such major events like war. So it's fascinating. So we can maybe disconnect from the world in a way and just like create our own bubble and, you know, live in our own reality. Like this lady that you mentioned that believed that she was a princess or something. So we all do it to a certain degree by allowing some information in, but like focusing on something else, right?
Of course,
Constructing our
there is
own.
one difference, which is the lady, you could say, objectively speaking, she was living in something that was not real.
Mhm.
The farmer in Poland, he was living a real life in just in his environment. Now he just didn't get the outside information that there was a war, that other people in Poland were dying, that cities were being destroyed. But I guess for him, for the success of his life, it was the same. For the happiness of his life, it made a big difference for the better that he did not know.
Exactly. So it's fascinating. You can survive even major changes in geopolitical arena, being isolated somewhere and not paying attention to it.
Right. So maybe summarize quickly. I would say there are advantages and disadvantages to knowing information. Generally, if information is positive, you do want to know because it's making you potentially more effective because you can change your behavior accordingly. And second, because you're probably going to be happier. If the information is negative, then you are having a dilemma because you might worry about the information, but on the other hand, you might be changing your behavior to be more effective, to be more productive. An example is information about your health condition and negative information about your health condition. If you can do something about it, you probably want to know about it because then you can change, you can have a treatment of that condition, even though you're going to worry about it. If, however, there's something like a terminal cancer, you cannot do anything about it, then maybe you don't want to know about it. On the other hand, even though you cannot do anything about the cancer, in that case, you can do something about the way you live because you can live life to the fullest if you know that you're going to die in, let's say, 3 years. So in that case, I would say you maybe still want to know. And then there's the case where you have a great life, but everything is based on a lie, or you're in Matrix and you are totally happy, but everything is based on a lie. Now, for you're not going to change anything. Do you want to know? Do you not want to know? Well, I would say I would still want to know because even I would prefer a realistic assessment, even though it's depressing, to a happiness, even if this happiness is based on a lie.